I never thought I'd be in this situation, but here I am. I'm Angela, 28F, and I've been dealing with a complicated family situation that's been eating away at me for the past year. It all started when my sister Ariana, 25F, began dating my ex-boyfriend Philip, 30M, behind my back. To give you some context, Ariana and I grew up in a small town in Ohio. We were always close despite our 3-year age gap. As kids, we shared a room and would stay up late whispering about our dreams and fears. Ariana was my confidant, the person I trusted most in the world. Our parents, both high school teachers, instilled in us the importance of family and loyalty. We were taught that sisters should always have each other's backs. I met Philip during my sophomore year of college. I was studying marketing at Ohio State, and he was a senior majoring in finance. We met at a campus coffee shop where I worked part-time. Philip would come in every morning for his coffee, and we'd chat while I made his drink. He was charming and ambitious, with a dry sense of humor that made me laugh. After weeks of flirting, Philip finally asked me out. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant near campus. I remember being so nervous I could barely eat my pasta. But Philip put me at ease with his easy conversation and genuine interest in getting to know me. By the end of the night, I knew there was something special between us. We officially started dating, and things moved quickly. Philip graduated that year but stayed in Columbus for a job at a local bank. I was thrilled that we wouldn't have to do long distance. We moved in together after I graduated 2 years later, renting a small apartment downtown. For the first few years, everything was great. We talked about marriage and our future together. Philip was supportive of my career aspirations, and I was his biggest cheerleader as he worked his way up at the bank. We'd spend weekends exploring new restaurants in the city or taking short trips to nearby towns. Ariana was always supportive of our relationship. She'd visit us in Columbus and we'd have girls' nights while Philip was working late. She'd tease me about when Philip was going to propose, saying she couldn't wait to be my maid of honor. I shared everything with her, my hopes for the future with Philip, my insecurities, everything. But as time went on, things started to change. Philip became more focused on his career, working longer hours and taking on more responsibilities at the bank. At first, I was understanding. I knew how important his job was to him, and I wanted to be supportive. But as weeks turned into months of barely seeing each other, I started to feel neglected. I tried talking to Philip about it multiple times. I'd suggest we set aside one night a week for a date night, or that he try to be home for dinner more often. He'd agree in the moment, but nothing would change. He'd say things like "this is just temporary" or "I'm doing this for our future." But the temporary situation seemed to become our new normal. I found myself spending more time alone or with friends while Philip worked late. I'd call Ariana often, venting my frustrations. She was always there to listen, offering words of encouragement and advice. She'd tell me to be patient, that Philip was probably just stressed and things would get better. But they didn't get better. After months of feeling lonely and unimportant in my own relationship, I knew something had to change. I sat Philip down for a serious talk. I told him how unhappy I was, how I felt like we were growing apart. I asked if he still saw a future for us. Philip seemed surprised by my unhappiness. He admitted he'd been distracted by work but insisted he still loved me and wanted to make things work. We agreed to try harder, to prioritize our relationship and make more time for each other. For a few weeks, things improved. Philip made an effort to be home more, and we even took a weekend trip to a nearby lake. But slowly, old patterns emerged. Philip started working late again, canceling our plans at the last minute for work emergencies. After another few months of this cycle, I realized I couldn't keep living like that. So after agonizing over the decision, I ended things with Philip when I was 25. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Despite our problems, I still loved Philip. But I knew I deserved someone who would prioritize our relationship. The breakup was hard, but I knew it was for the best. I threw myself into my own career, eventually landing a job at a marketing firm I loved. I spent time reconnecting with friends and family. Ariana was especially supportive during this time. She'd come visit me in Columbus, bringing ice cream and trashy movies. She listened to me cry about Philip and assured me I'd made the right choice. I was so grateful to have her support. Fast forward 3 years to last summer. I was 28 and in a much better place. I had a job I loved, great friends, and had even started casually dating again. Then one day, I got a text from Ariana asking to meet up. She seemed nervous, which was unusual for her. When we met at a cafe, she dropped a bombshell. She had been secretly dating Philip for the past 6 months. I was stunned. A million thoughts raced through my mind. How could my own sister do this to me? How long had this been going on? Was there overlap with when Philip and I were together? Ariana swore up and down that nothing happened while Philip and I were dating. She said they reconnected at a mutual friend's wedding about 7 months ago and things just clicked. I didn't know how to react. Part of me wanted to scream at her, but I was too shocked to say much. I just got up and left the cafe. For the next few weeks, I ignored calls and texts from both Ariana and Philip. I was hurt and angry and needed space to process everything. Eventually, I agreed to talk to Ariana. She apologized profusely and said she never meant to hurt me. She claimed she and Philip had real feelings for each other and it wasn't just some fling. I told her I felt betrayed and that it would take time for me to forgive her, if I ever could. That was about a year ago. Since then, things have been tense in our family. Our parents are caught in the middle, trying not to take sides. Extended family gatherings are awkward. Ariana and Philip are still together and seem serious about their relationship. I've tried to move on and focus on my own life, but it's hard. Every time I see them together, it reopens old wounds. Not just about Philip, but about feeling betrayed by my own sister. Ariana keeps trying to make things right, inviting me to dinners or suggesting we do things together like we used to. But I just can't bring myself to act like everything is normal. The real kicker came last week. Ariana called to tell me she and Philip are engaged. She wants me to be her maid of honor. I was speechless. How could she possibly think I'd be okay with that? I told her I needed time to think and hung up. Now I'm torn. Part of me wants to refuse and cut ties with both of them completely. But another part worries about permanently damaging my relationship with my sister and causing a rift in our family. My parents are urging me to forgive and move forward for the sake of family harmony. But I'm not sure I can do that. Am I wrong for still being upset about this? Should I just suck it up and be in the wedding for the sake of keeping the peace? Or should I stand my ground and refuse, even if it causes more family drama? I feel lost and could use some outside perspectives on this mess. Update 1, it's been about 2 months since my last post, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. It really helped me gain perspective and find the strength to stand up for myself. After a lot of thought, I decided I couldn't be Ariana's maid of honor or attend the wedding. It was a tough decision, but I knew in my heart it was the right one for me. I spent days agonizing over how to tell Ariana. I wrote out what I wanted to say, practiced in front of the mirror, and even role-played the conversation with a friend. Finally, I worked up the courage to meet with Ariana in person. We met at the same cafe where she had first told me about her relationship with Philip. As soon as I saw her, my stomach knotted up. Ariana looked excited, already talking about wedding plans before we even sat down. I had to interrupt her to say what I'd come to say. I explained that while I was trying to move past my anger, I wasn't ready to celebrate her relationship with Philip. I told her that asking me to be maid of honor felt insensitive given our history. I tried to be as calm and clear as possible, emphasizing that this was about protecting my own mental health, not punishing her. Ariana didn't take it well. Her face fell as I spoke, and by the time I finished, she was visibly angry. She accused me of being selfish and holding on to the past. She said I was ruining her special day and making everything about me. I did my best to stay calm, reiterating that this was a personal decision, not an attack on her. But Ariana wasn't hearing it. The conversation ended with her storming off, leaving me sitting alone in the cafe. In the weeks that followed, things got messy. Ariana told our parents and extended family that I was refusing to attend the wedding out of spite. She painted me as the villain who was trying to ruin her happiness. Some family members sided with her and started pressuring me to change my mind. Our Aunt Karen, who's always been a bit of a busybody, called me almost daily trying to convince me to reconsider. She'd say things like, "Family is everything, Angela. You'll regret this decision." Our cousin Mike, who's always been closer to Ariana, sent me a long text accusing me of being petty and immature. Even our parents, who had initially tried to stay neutral, started hinting that I should just go to the wedding to keep the peace. My mom would sigh heavily during our phone calls and say things like, "I just hate seeing you girls fight like this." My dad, never one for emotional conversations, awkwardly tried to bribe me by offering to pay for a vacation if I agreed to be in the wedding. But then something unexpected happened. Our cousin Lily, 32F, reached out to me. Lily and I had never been particularly close. She's a few years older and lives in California, so we only really saw each other at big family events. But she sent me a text asking if we could talk. When we got on the phone, Lily revealed something that changed everything. She told me that about a year before Ariana got together with Philip, Ariana had tried to pursue Lily's husband Mark, 34M. Apparently, Ariana had sent flirty texts to Mark and even tried to kiss him at a family reunion. Mark shut it down immediately and told Lily, but they decided to keep it quiet to avoid family drama. Lily said she was telling me now because she felt guilty for staying silent. She said seeing how Ariana was treating me now made her realize she should have spoken up sooner. She apologized for not saying anything earlier and offered her support if I needed it. This revelation changed everything. It showed a pattern of behavior from Ariana that went beyond just dating my ex. I realized this wasn't just about me. Ariana had a history of disregarding other people's relationships. It made me question how many other incidents there might have been that I didn't know about. With Lily's permission, I shared this information with our parents. They were shocked and disappointed in Ariana. Mom broke down crying, saying she couldn't believe her daughter would behave this way. Dad got very quiet, which is always a sign he's deeply upset. It helped them understand why I was so hurt and why attending the wedding would be so difficult for me. Armed with this new information, I had another conversation with our parents. I explained that while I didn't want to cut Ariana out of my life entirely, I needed to set firm boundaries. This included not attending the wedding and limiting my interactions with her and Philip for the time being. My parents were much more understanding this time. Mom even apologized for pressuring me to go to the wedding, saying she now understood why it would be too painful. As for Ariana, when confronted about Lily's husband, she initially tried to deny it. But when faced with the evidence of the text messages Lily had saved, she broke down and admitted it was true. She swore it was a one-time mistake and begged everyone not to tell Philip. I'm not sure what will happen with Ariana and Philip's relationship now that this has come to light. Part of me feels guilty for potentially ruining their engagement, but I also feel like the truth needed to come out. Philip deserves to know what kind of person he's planning to marry. For now, I'm focusing on healing and moving forward. I've started seeing a counselor to work through my feelings about everything that's happened. It's been helpful to have a neutral party to talk to, someone who can offer strategies for dealing with family gatherings and setting healthy boundaries. I'm also spending more time with friends and pursuing hobbies I enjoy. I've taken up painting, something I used to love in high school but gave up when life got busy. It's been therapeutic to lose myself in creating something beautiful. I've also been spending more time outdoors, taking long walks in the park near my apartment. The fresh air and exercise have been good for clearing my head. It's not easy, but I'm taking it one day at a time. Some days are harder than others. There are moments when I miss the close relationship I used to have with Ariana, or when I feel angry all over again about the betrayal. But overall, I feel like I'm moving in the right direction. I'm proud of myself for standing up for what I believe is right, even when it was difficult. I'm not sure what the future holds for my family. I hope that eventually, we can find a way to heal and move forward. But for now, I'm focusing on taking care of myself and surrounding myself with people who respect and value me. Thank you again to everyone who offered advice and support. It's meant more than you know. Update 2. It's been about 6 months since my last update, and the situation has evolved in ways I never expected. I want to share what's been happening and get some advice on how to proceed. After the revelation about Ariana's behavior with Lily's husband, things in our family were tense for a while. Ariana and Philip postponed their wedding indefinitely to work through their issues. Our parents insisted that Ariana get counseling to address her behavior patterns. At first, Ariana was resistant and tried to downplay her actions. She'd make excuses, saying things like, "It was just harmless flirting," or "I was going through a rough time." But after Philip threatened to end their relationship, she finally agreed to seek help. She's been seeing a therapist regularly for the past few months. To everyone's surprise, including my own, Ariana's therapy seems to be making a real difference. About 2 months ago, she reached out to me and asked if we could talk. I was hesitant but agreed to meet her in a public place. We met at a small park near my apartment. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon and families were out enjoying the weather. Ariana looked nervous as she approached me. We sat on a bench and for a few minutes, neither of us spoke. Then Ariana took a deep breath and started talking. She gave me a heartfelt apology for dating Philip behind my back and for trying to pressure me into being her maid of honor. She acknowledged that her behavior had been selfish and hurtful. Ariana also apologized for her past actions with Lily's husband, recognizing how inappropriate and damaging that had been. What struck me most was that Ariana didn't make excuses or try to justify her actions. She took full responsibility and expressed genuine remorse. She told me that therapy had helped her recognize her pattern of seeking validation through relationships, even at the expense of hurting others. Ariana explained that she'd always felt insecure compared to me. She said she felt like she was living in my shadow. I was the older sister who seemed to have it all together, with a good job and a long-term relationship. She admitted that pursuing Philip and Lily's husband had been attempts to prove something to herself, to feel desirable and worthy. She said she understood if I couldn't forgive her, but she hoped we could start rebuilding our relationship slowly. She suggested we could start with occasional text check-ins and maybe work up to short coffee meetups if I was comfortable. I was touched by her sincerity, but also wary. I told Ariana I appreciated her apology and was glad she was getting help. However, I explained that trust takes time to rebuild, and I wasn't ready to jump back into a close sister relationship. I agreed to her suggestion of starting with texts and seeing how things go. Over the past couple of months, Ariana and I have been exchanging occasional messages. They're mostly surface level, talking about work, sharing funny memes, that sort of thing. But it's been nice to have that line of communication open again without the heavy emotional weight. As for Ariana and Philip, they're still together but taking things slowly. Philip was understandably upset when he learned about the incident with Lily's husband, but he's cautiously giving Ariana another chance while she continues her therapy. They're no longer engaged, but they're working on rebuilding trust in their relationship. Our family dynamics are slowly improving too. At a recent family dinner, there was less tension than there's been in months. Ariana and I were civil to each other, and while we're not back to our old closeness, it felt like a step in the right direction. Here's where I could use some advice. Last week, Ariana invited me to have dinner with her and Philip. She said they want to talk to me together and clear the air. Part of me is curious to hear what they have to say, but another part is anxious about facing them as a couple. I'm not sure if I'm ready for this step. On one hand, I can see that Ariana is making an effort to change and make amends. Her apology seems sincere, and I appreciate that she's been respecting my boundaries these past few months. It's clear that therapy is helping her understand her behavior better. On the other hand, the thought of sitting across a table from my sister and my ex still makes me uncomfortable. Philip and I haven't spoken directly since I found out about his relationship with Ariana. I'm not sure how I'll react seeing them together in a more intimate setting like a dinner. I'm also worried about dredging up old feelings. I've made a lot of progress in moving on from Philip and healing from the hurt of their betrayal. I don't want to risk undoing all that work if the dinner goes poorly. There's also a part of me that wonders if this dinner is too soon. Ariana and I have only recently started communicating again, and it's been very surface level. Am I ready to dive into deeper conversations with both her and Philip? What do you think I should do? Should I agree to the dinner and hear them out? Or is it too soon? I want to be open to reconciliation if it's genuine, but I also don't want to rush into a situation that might set back my own emotional progress. Any thoughts or advice would be greatly appreciated. Update 3. It's been about 3 months since my last update, and I wanted to share the latest developments in this ongoing family saga. After much consideration and talking it over with my therapist, I decided to accept Ariana and Philip's invitation to dinner. My therapist helped me prepare for the meeting, suggesting some techniques for managing my emotions and setting clear boundaries. We role-played potential scenarios, which helped me feel more confident going into the dinner. We met at a neutral restaurant, a new Italian place downtown that none of us had been to before. I arrived a few minutes early and waited nervously at the bar, sipping a glass of wine to calm my nerves. When Ariana and Philip walked in, I felt a mix of emotions, anxiety, residual anger, but also a glimmer of hope that maybe we could move forward. Both Ariana and Philip seemed genuinely nervous, which was actually somewhat reassuring. It showed they understood the gravity of the situation. We were seated at a quiet table in the corner, away from other diners, which I appreciated. After we ordered, there was an awkward silence. Finally, Philip cleared his throat and started speaking. He apologized for the pain he'd caused me, both during our relationship and by dating Ariana. He admitted that he'd been immature and selfish, prioritizing his career over our relationship and then jumping into something with Ariana without considering my feelings. Philip explained that he'd done a lot of soul-searching over the past few months. He said he realized he had a pattern of running away from emotional challenges rather than facing them head-on. He told me he was also seeing a therapist to work on these issues. Ariana then spoke up, reiterating her apology from our previous meeting, this time with Philip present. She talked about how therapy had helped her recognize her pattern of seeking validation through relationships and how she was working on building her self-worth in healthier ways. She also apologized again for her behavior with Lily's husband, acknowledging how much damage her actions had caused to multiple relationships. What surprised me most was when they announced they had decided to call off their engagement. They explained that while they care for each other, they realized they rushed into things for the wrong reasons. They're still dating but are taking things much slower and focusing on individual growth. I listened to everything they had to say, taking time to process before responding. I told them that I appreciated their honesty and the effort they were making to address their issues. I explained that while I couldn't promise an immediate return to how things were before, I was open to slowly rebuilding trust and finding a new normal for our relationships. We ended up talking for hours, delving into old hurts and misunderstandings, but also sharing some laughs as we reminisced about happier times. It wasn't a magical fix-all, but it felt like a significant step forward. Since that dinner, things have been different, but in a positive way. Ariana and I have been having more meaningful conversations, beyond just surface-level chats. We've even met up for coffee a couple of times. It's not the same carefree relationship we had before, but it feels like we're building something new and potentially stronger. We've started being more honest with each other about our feelings and insecurities. Ariana has opened up more about her feelings of inadequacy and her fear of being left behind. I've shared my own insecurities and how her actions made me question my own worth. These conversations aren't always easy, but they feel necessary and ultimately healing. As for Philip, we're not friends, but we can now be in the same room without it being awkward. At a recent family gathering, we were able to have a polite conversation about work without any underlying tension. It's a small step, but a significant one. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future of my relationship with Ariana. I can see she's genuinely working on herself, and that means a lot to me. We're planning to start a monthly sister date, just the two of us, to continue rebuilding our bond. This whole experience has taught me a lot about forgiveness, setting boundaries, and the importance of open communication. It hasn't been an easy journey, but I feel like I've grown a lot through it all. Thank you to everyone who's followed this story and offered advice along the way. Your support has meant more than you know. While there's still work to be done, I feel hopeful about the future for the first time in a long while.